So we're doing the Season 13 update for best champions to climb mid lane with. Now, since the last video I made, I have another year of coaching under my belt full time. So I have a little bit more experience. And Season 13, some champions have changed, some things have changed. So we're going to be rating in this tier list the best champions to climb mid lane. Not to win, not what's the best in the meta right now, but the best to learn the game through and to push yourself through. Okay? So there's a couple things that go into this that I'll be talking about. The biggest thing is complexity. And there's actually two types of complexity when it comes to champions. And you want a pretty simple champion. Complexity. I can't really spell. That's close enough, right? The first type, you have mechanical, right? This is just how hard is it to do the things, to do your kit, right? Like Ahri would be relatively simple. Annie would be the simplest mechanically. Kiana would be one of the hardest, or any auto attack based champion would be harder. The second kind is identity / job. And this is how clear is it to understand what you have to do to win each game, or what you have to do to get into a winning position each game. Again, Annie is simple. It's win lane, kill weak people, right? On somebody like a control mage, Victor or Orianna, it's much more complex because in some games you want to play front to back. How far you can side lane depends on who you're playing against. It depends on your junglers, what runes you take. You have more build options. There's just more complexity there. You don't know necessarily what a good or bad play is for that champion. So these two things combined have a total complexity, and that's mostly what I'm basing this tier list off of. If you have more simple champions, you can have more champions in your champion pool. But if you play a super complex champion, you can really only play one or two, right? So we'll be doing mid lane here. And here we have the tiers. The for fun, these are picks. They're going to be like the really hard picks. They're both mechanically complex and their identity is complex. You only play those if you really love that champion. Or if you're high elo, like Diamond Plus, you can play whatever you want. Or if you're Masters Plus, you can start to play for the meta a little bit. Don't is just, you probably shouldn't do it. C is not ideal, but a C champion is still fine. You can climb you can climb very good with a C tier champion. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to go A to Z. A lot of these champions aren't mid laners, so I'm just going to skip them. But Ahri is an amazing mid laner to climb with. She's very safe. She teaches you how to auto space correctly, which is really good for setting up how to play other mages. She's really good at roaming and playing in these skirmishing, which is a really good skill to learn as a mid laner. And it's good to climb through a low elo. So I'm putting Ahri in amazing tier. Akali, I would say not ideal. She has her time where she's like really good in the meta. And when she's really good in the meta, she's fine. But she is mechanically complex. Her job is relatively simple. You're kind of a scaling assassin. You play slow, you scale. But I would say not ideal. She's like borderline don't as well. If you're low elo, like I cannot stress this enough. If you're like gold or below, I would not play her. So she's in between don't and not ideal for me. If you're past gold, she probably becomes more like solid. Because her identity is simple. But her mechanics are fairly complex. So I'll leave her a not ideal. Plus or minus based on your rank. Auction, in between solid and amazing. So the thing about Auction is he's a lane bully. So he's really good at teaching you how to use your auto attacks to get a big lead and snowball from there. But you will kind of create some blind spots in your game. If you only play Auction and you only play Auction mid, you will definitely play very overconfident if you try to swap to other stuff. So he's pretty good. He's pretty simple. He is an auto attack based champion, and all auto attack based champions they have at least a little bit of mechanical complexity, but his job's pretty simple. You poop on your lane, you slow stack waves, you roam, you take plates, you get giant leads, and you try to carry games that way. He's pretty good, and you can play multiple champions with him. Awesome. Anivia, another solid champion. I don't think she's great right now. I think she's in kind of a weird spot. Maybe if she was like a lot better in the meta or something, she'd be better. And she's also very unique. So if you play Anivia, you won't really get a lot of transferable skills, I don't think. She's also a little bit deceiving because people think that she's a control mage like Orianna or Victor, but she's more burst mage-like. She's more like Annie and Zoe and Vex than you would think. So she's fine. She's solid, but I think there are definitely better looks. Annie, of course, top pick. This is LS approved. This is me approved. She taught me my fundamental mechanics. Even when I was in Diamond, for me to actually learn mid lane and not just be a Diamond TRYND mid player, I had to pick up Annie and learn the mechanics. She taught me how to F key. She's amazing for learning the game. She teaches you to be really creative because she doesn't have that many options. So with the limited options you have to learn how to play with the fundamentals in a really creative way. With all of the Annie players in the academy, we always talk about really being creative. So she teaches you what the rules are and then how to bend them and how to use them to your advantage. Beautiful. If you can stomach Annie, she will be one of the best champions to learn the lane with. Aurelion Sol, I don't know. He's getting reworked in a little bit, so he'll probably be up and solid once he gets reworked. But since I don't know, right now, he's for fun tier. Pretty much for sure. You have to get a lot of games on him just to be relevant. And then once you get those games, it doesn't transfer to anything. So I'm actually just going to put him in the I don't know yet tier. Because he could be, I'm guessing he'll be solid from what I've seen, but I don't know yet. Azir, not ideal unless you're high elo again. If you're plat plus, Azir is probably solid. Because, again, these control mages have so many options, it's really tough to climb with a control mage. I think Victor would be the only control mage in solid. Victor is probably the simplest control mage to learn. Orianna, Azir, they're not worth. Not worth at all. Okay. Brand, we're going to count that as a support. We don't really see him mid. Cassiopeia, another champion that's going to get changed when the new season drops. So she may hop up to solid, but she's really hard mechanically. She's just as hard as these two champions. Even though it may not seem like it initially, she's deceptively hard, which I think makes her even better for the not ideal tier. So definitely not ideal. I'll put her at the top of not ideal. I'd rather somebody play Cassiopeia than Akali or Azir, for sure. But she's definitely tough. Corki, we're going to put Corki in don't. He's just a scaling champion who doesn't really do anything. He will not teach you how to lane correctly. He will not teach you how to play the game correctly. Even when he's really good in the meta, just don't. No reason to. Diana, we're going to put up into solid. She's super nice to learn the game, especially if you're low elo. The higher elo you get, I would drop her down, actually. She's one of the only champions where once you get higher elo, I drop her down. But super good to pick up mid lane and learn the lane through. Echo is solid, same reason. Fizz, definitely solid. He's probably the best assassin to learn mid lane through because he's so simple. In terms of his identity, your identity is very simple and his mechanics aren't that hard compared to like Kiana or something. So he's solid. Galio is solid to put into a pool. He won't teach you a ton, but he's good to just throw into a pool. Garen, another amazing pick. Now, Garen's really amazing because you won't get a ton of kills on Garen. You just won't. But that will force you to learn how to play the game in different creative ways again. You're going to have to understand macro perfectly. You're going to have to understand gold and where you can get different forms of gold at a very high level. You're going to have to understand tempo very well. So he's one of the best picks in the game for teaching you macro. If you're coming to mid and looking to learn the role, Garen, if you can stomach him, is one of the best things to learn for macro. Gangplank, I'm just going to put him in don't because seriously don't do that. Same with Gragas, putting him in don't. Same with Graves, putting him in don't. These are all either cheesy or too mechanically complex or too situational. Just don't. These champions, like all these Gnar and Gwen, same thing. I'm not even going to acknowledge them. Same with this guy. Same with this guy. Karma, solid again. Another super solid one. She's good to throw into a pool, but she's not great to like main, right? So she's good to throw in if you need an AP champion or if you just want something to fill in some harder games for your main champion, but she's not something that you should just like play all the time or blind pick. No Irelia? Yeah, Irelia, too complex mechanically. Also, she doesn't do good mid lane. Like the vast majority of the high elo Irelia one tricks are top lane mains because she just doesn't do good mid. You don't really get any opportunity to express what Irelia wants to express in mid lane. If you want to play Irelia, play her top. Katarina's for fun. I hate Katarina. The thing about Katarina, like, this for fun tier should almost be higher than D tier, because it's like, if you really want to one-trick it, you can make it work. And Gragas is probably the same way. Heimerdinger's the same way, actually. But it will be slow, and you won't learn as much if you played a different champion. And it limits your options. So the only reason you'd play a for fun champion is if you really just enjoy that champion, and you can make it work. You can climb with these people. It happens all the time, but it's not ideal. It's definitely for fun. And I would not recommend it if you don't want to. Kale, not really a mid laner. I would definitely put her in don't as well. Keep her to the top lane. Irelia, Graves, all these champions, keep them to top. Kassadin, very good. Very, very good. But again, he's very situational, so he's tough to one trick. So I'll put him in middle of solid. Kennen, solid. He's similar to Annie, just harder. LeBlanc, don't. Actually, for fun. Just don't do it unless you love this champion and you're going to one trick her. She's for fun. Lysandra, pretty amazing. She's very similar. Imagine Ari plus Annie. That's Lysandra. There you go. Take that. Take that and run with that. Lux, I think, is solid. Not great, not awful. The order matters left to right is what I'm deciding. So I'm going to make sure. Yeah. Yep. I think this is about right. Lux not ideal. Yeah. I mean, she's solid. She's very, very good. Like all these B tier champions, if somebody came into the academy playing these champions, I am very happy with it. Very happy with it. Malzahar, solid. He's so, again, different and linear that like he's not amazing, but he's solid. Nico's really good. I'll put her up here. I'll even put Malzahar above Kassadin. Much rather somebody play Malzahar than Kassadin. Morgana, high, solid, maybe even amazing. I feel like you need a tier between B and C. Nah, all these champions I kind of see in the same tier. It's these bottom half that are maybe not ideal. I'll even slam some of these guys into not ideal because they're either too situational. Yeah, the situational guys I'll put into not ideal. I'll even put situational. Like, I would never blind pick Kennen, but he's so good. What makes you put Morgana so high? So Morgana is very simple mechanics, even simpler than somebody like Ari. And she'll teach you macros. So you have to be very creative with her. Now, the reason she's not as high as Annie and Garen is because she's a little bit harder. She's not quite as good as those champions, so it's harder to pull it off. But if you main Morgana, you will get really good macro playing mid. For sure, for sure, for sure. Okay, Orianna, don't. Not only is she awful right now, but if you're not above platinum, she's just too complicated to even try. She's like Cassiopeia and Azir if you took the worst parts and didn't take the good parts. Just don't. Until something changes, and I'm making this right before the season drops, right before 13.1. So unless something changes, just don't. If she gets reworked, maybe, but for now, just don't. Rise. Very not ideal. If you're high elo, actually, you would pick him at the same time you'd pick Kennen. If you're high elo and they're all short range, he's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. But otherwise, don't. He's also pretty safe to blind pick. But yeah, probably don't. Kiana, obviously for fun. Do not play this champion unless you're just having fun. You can make it work, but yeah. You will slow your climb down. It will be painful. So don't do that. Rumble, solid. Rumble's great. I think Rumble will teach you the game very well. Rumble's also very good into all the melee champions. Rumble's amazing. Let's see. Seraphine is solid. Maybe not ideal because she's too supporty. Yeah, maybe not ideal. Swain is fine after the rework. Is this for low elo? This is best champions to learn mid through. Yes, best champions to learn through. Silas. The thing is, Silas is oftentimes good in the meta, but he's very bad to learn, and he's very bad for low elo. He's very bad if you're not like platinum or higher. So I'm going to put him in the for fun tier. If you're diamond plus, again, he's probably solid or amazing, but below diamond, he's for fun. Don't play, do not. It will ruin your understanding of mid lane. Oh, Syndra is actually up here with Victor. Now the reason, and she's actually probably higher. I'll actually put Victor a little bit lower. The reason Syndra's higher is because she actually scales a little bit harder, and I think she's a little bit safer. So her self peel is a little bit easier to pull off. It's a little bit more reliable, which means you have another clear win condition to rely on, and you're a little bit safer. I think the matchups are a little bit easier. So the Syndra rework bumped her way up. She's very good. Syndra's very nice to climb with. TRYND, this is the champion that I won tricked up to Diamond. Now, I'm going to put him in Solid because you can play him all the time. He's a great blind pick. He's good into a lot of champions. But if you play TRYND, it's kind of the same thing as Auction. You will create some blind spots in your brain. Actually, I'll put her up here, and I'll put TRYND up here. You create some blind spots in your brain. When I swapped off of TRYND, I realized I didn't have the jungle tracking that a normal mid laner would have because I was just so safe all the time. I also didn't know how to be respectful to jungle pressure because I would always just live, right? I'm TRYND, I don't die. So TRYND's solid. She's not as good. She's maybe not, she's too situational, but she's fine. Talon is amazing. He is the best assassin. Fizz would be the second best. He's the best champion to learn if you want to learn how assassins play. Beautiful. Beautiful. Talia, is she even a mid laner? Like, she's not really. How do you feel about Bruiser mid, like Wukong Aatrox? Into like Cass? Yeah, they're fine. Aatrox is probably better. I put TRYND and Garen up in S and B. I think Aatrox would be situational. I think Mordekaiser would also be situational. There was a Talia mid meta. And even then, she wasn't great for learning the role, I don't think. So I'm just going to put her in don't. Put her in don't. Twisted Fate, also, until something changes, just don't. People think that they can pick Twisted Fate and learn macro, but you won't. Because you have to be incredibly good at laning, and your job changes very heavily based on who the junglers are. So just don't. Just don't. Maybe if you're really high elo, you can get away with it. But otherwise, just don't. Yeah, champions like Set, Mordekaiser, they're all situational. They're fine. Okay, I'll even put them in there. Situational. Veigar. He's okay. Again, he has the same issue Seraphine has, where he'll teach you how to not play lane. He'll teach you to just kind of be very passive. And then, so it's fine. You can definitely make it work. These C-tier champions, you can definitely make work. Or maybe they're situational based off rank or something. But he's in between. Like, he's high C tier for sure. I'd rather you guys play Veigar than any of these champions. And I'll put Trist up in high C tier as well. Trist is a lot more blind pickable, which maybe even puts her in solid. Yeah, let's put Trist in solid. Let's keep going down the list. Vel'Koz, I think, is solid. Actually, I might be biased because of somebody in the academy. I definitely feel like Seraphine should be higher. You guys don't play Seraphine. What are you guys talking about? The thing about Seraphine is she facilitates you. She doesn't facilitate winning lane. She facilitates just kind of playing around your teammates and stuff, which is fine. And there's nothing wrong with playing supports mid. I actually have, I put Karma up in solid, but if you're going to play a support mid, I'd rather you play a lane bully support so you learn how to play the game. Same thing as Karma. No, Karma plays much more aggressively. You have to, or you can't shove and roam. Just shoves wave and supports? Yeah. So, maybe she's higher. Yeah, I'd rather you guys play Seraphine than Kassadin and Rise for sure. Seraphine has better wave clear. Right, so you don't have to play lane. You kind of just sit back and do nothing, right? She's better than control mage wave clear. But she doesn't teach you how to play the game. That's why she's in situational. Vel'Koz, I actually kind of feel the same about. I'm going to put him here. Vex, S tier, because she's just modern Annie. If you can't handle Annie, see if you can handle Vex. She'll teach you the exact same things. She does the same things. She just does it in a different way. Annie has a little bit more like auto spacing and some weird clunkier mechanics. Old school players tend to like Annie more. Newer school players tend to prefer Vex more. So that's just kind of what that's about. Vladimir, again, he's fine, but not great. He's pretty much the same thing as Veigar. He's going to teach you how to play lane in a bad way. He's going to teach you how to approach the game in a very awkward, selfish, weird way, but you can make it work. Anything in C tier, you can make work, just maybe not ideal. If you were a brand new player playing mid, I wouldn't recommend you any of these champions. I'd always recommend these ones first, but you can make it work. It's fine. Xerath we'll put into like really not ideal. Bottom of not ideal. It's just a worse spell cause in my mind. You guys are saying Varus? Varus is... I haven't really seen enough of him. How would I feel if somebody joined the Academy as a Varus main? It's fine. It's maybe a bit situational. It's a bit hard. It's fine. Okay. Because the thing is, if it's a niche champion and there's less resources for you, that's also something to consider, right? So we're mostly going off complexity, but resources on the champion is also tough. Because it's like, if you're playing something like Varus, you're not going to have as many things to look at. You're not going to have as many guides. You're not going to have as many videos to watch as easily. You're not going to see as many builds, all these kind of things. Yeah, we're not even counting brand. Don't. Let's see. Yasuo, for fun. If you're playing Yasuo, you're clearly playing for fun. Again, that's fine. Yone, not ideal. He's actually... I'd rather you guys play Yone than these champions. Yeah, so the C tier left to right matters a lot. Because I'd rather you play these champions than these ones by quite a good margin. He's definitely a lot easier than Yasuo, which is why he's not in the 4-1 tier, but he is still complex, and his job changes, whether you side lane, whether you split push, all those kind of things. We're pretty much done, right? Ziggs is going to be same spot as these two. He's just better ADC. Probably don't play him mid, but he's fine. Zack's actually pretty strong, but these are all weird champions. Zed, again, not ideal because you could just play, not only is he AD, which kind of is awkward in a lot of pools, but you could just play Fizz or Talon and it would be better. Zillion, he's solid. Yep, he's solid. He's like Seraphine, but a little bit more aggressive. You'll learn to play lane a little bit better. Zoe, solid. The higher elo you get, the better she gets, I think, but she will teach you to play very aggressively. I think she's solid. These champions, they just don't really play mid. Wait, Singed, Pantheon. So you guys are talking about really niche champions. All of those are really, really niche champions, and the niche champions get pushed into either not ideal or just don't. Because it's going to be harder to find resources. It's going to be harder to do all these things. And think about all the Singed mid players. They're going to not play Singed mid because I put them in don't on a tier list. They're going to play them anyways, right? So it's like, for any new player wondering about those picks, don't. Anything that you guys have mentioned that I haven't put on the tier list yet, don't. Like, seriously. Or maybe they could be put in the for fun tier, like one of these two. I noticed this tier list is based towards AP picks. And there's a reason for that, right? We do have a couple of high tier AD picks, right? We have Garen in S tier, we have Talon in A tier. But these other AD picks, they have auto attacks based into their champions or other very hard mechanics, which makes it very, very hard to play those champions. Auction's also in A tier. He's probably low A tier. I'd rather you play all these guys over this guy. But yeah. Did we miss Kiana, by the way? No, we put Kiana for fun. Yeah. So I think this is pretty good.